this is getting actually kind of crazy of how much you can manifest when you let yourself get your hopes up and let yourself expect good things. We can either focus on the worst case scenario and think it's not going to go good, or we can focus on the best case scenario and let ourselves get our hopes up. When you force yourself to expect good things and focus on the best case scenario, things start coming true.
We do so much self-preservation of not wanting too much, not expecting too much, being ready for the other shoe to drop. I would so much rather feel the pain of disappointment that maybe I got my hopes up and something didn't work out in the exact moment that I wanted it to, than to feel like things aren't possible.
Thank you so much to Google Shopping for sponsoring this episode. All right, the holiday season is officially upon us, y'all. And as you all know, I'm all about practicality, mindfulness, and self-care. But that being said, sometimes my loved ones need a little nudge in the right direction when it comes to shopping for me at the holidays. But this year, they finally got a secret for smart, intentional gifting, the Google Holiday 100. It's a list of the top 100 trending products backed by Google search trends, so you know they're already popular. Now, I've already sent my loved ones the link, and they've been scrolling through it and finding some amazing wellness gifts for me. Think top-rated red light therapy masks and personalized yoga straps. It's giving major inspo for gifts that are actually an investment in my self-care routine. So if your loved ones are also stressing about finding those perfect presents that you'll actually use, send them the link to the Google Holiday 100 at g.co/holiday100. Trust me, it'll make their holiday shopping easier and you a whole lot happier. It's a win-win.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of She's So Lucky, the podcast all about how we create our own luck. And when I think about ways that I have created my own luck, manifestation and learning how to manifest and being open to manifestation has been such a huge part of that. We've done episodes about manifestation on the show over the years, but I realized it's been a minute. So I actually invited one of my favorite manifestation creators, Olivia Rose Thomas, to the show so that we can all get our manifest on.
Hello, Liz. I'm so honored to be here. I've been following you for so long. So I feel like me coming on this podcast is a manifestation as well.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, I love that you want to talk about all things manifesting. I love your rebrand, by the way, to She's So Lucky. I think that's such a beautiful encapsulation of this new era of like, hey, let's create our own luck.
So I thought that it would be fun as kind of like an icebreaker to maybe start off talking about some things that we've manifested. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if there was a time where you feel like you were consciously manifesting for the first time and what that was.
I had heard about the topic of manifesting in like 2020. I think a lot of people started getting into it around then when we were all stuck in our homes with nothing better to do than like scroll and learn and dive into new topics. And when I heard about it, I was like, that's absolutely not true. I saw the quote, "You have the power to create your own reality." And I was like triggered by that. I was like, that's not true. We don't have any power over creating our reality. Like, that's not true. We're kind of just in a path, and that's, you know, you're in luck or you're not in luck, right? But I figured, you know, if that is true, I might as well test it out. That was right before I decided to move to New York. And so I was like, okay, I'm moving to New York. Let me try out this manifesting thing. Let me start getting really clear on things I want to manifest, start creating these delusional goals. Started making a vision board and putting all these things down. So many of those things ended up coming true. And so I was like, oh, okay, this cannot be a coincidence. And I realized that the more I started being kind to myself, the more I started visualizing, the more I started doing the healing work, the easier it was to manifest. And then so many things started coming true. I started getting really serious about it and really going down the rabbit hole and starting to expand my mind even more. Some examples of things I manifested, like moving to New York. I was like, okay, I want to live in, you know, a nice apartment with like 2 guys and 2 girls and do like a friend situation. Ended up getting that exact situation. It was so fun. Ended up realizing I needed a little bit more space. So I was like, okay, living by myself would be so cool. That's a little bit unrealistic, but I'm going to still put it on my vision board. And essentially, literally like the next day after I put it on my vision board, one of my friends asked me to sublet her apartment, this really nice high-rise studio apartment. And I was like, okay, this is getting actually kind of crazy of how much you can manifest when you actually let yourself get your hopes up and let yourself expect good things. And that was essentially my huge realization of we can either focus on the worst case scenario and think it's not going to go good, or we can focus on the best case scenario and let ourselves get our hopes up. And I quickly realized that when you force yourself to expect good things and focus on the best case scenario, things start coming true. And I've been doing that ever since.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love what you said about get our hopes up. Like, I think we do so much self-preservation of not wanting too much, not expecting too much,
Totally.
being ready for the other shoe to drop. And I think that I would so much rather feel the pain of disappointment that maybe I got my hopes up and something didn't work out in the exact moment that I wanted it to, or in the way that I thought it should. I would so much rather feel that than to feel like things aren't possible. That to me feels so much more painful than maybe being a little bit disappointed that something didn't work out how I thought it would in that moment.
I always say that it's just kind of our ego that gets disappointed, thinking that there's only one way for it to happen, or only, thinking that we knew the best way that it could happen. But ultimately, when you're letting yourself get your hopes up and you're letting yourself dream big, you're still moving your vibration in a good direction. And it's like you're going to still be, propelled in a forward motion towards your dreams if you do let yourself get your hopes up and just kind of realize if for some reason you don't get what you want, something even better is going to come, or just understanding that rejection is redirection and understanding that everything's happening for you.
Yeah. When I think about the times that I've consciously manifested, my example actually I think is really similar to yours. I lived in Seattle the first 30 years of my life. My whole 20s, I had wanted to move to LA. Mm-hmm. It was like my North Star. I visited LA when I was 9 years old. I went home. I told my parents I'm going to move there when I grow up, and I just never really let it go. But every year when it came time to renew my leases and things in Seattle, I just kept doing it. I just kept staying, largely out of fear. And New Year's going into 2019, I was like, okay, this is the last year of my 20s. I am moving to LA. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So this is the year. And I didn't fully know how it was going to come together, but I was so set. Like, okay, my lease is up in August. Mm-hmm. I am not renewing it, and I'm going to be moving to LA. Didn't really know how that was going to happen, but I was doing things throughout the year to prepare. I had a friend who was a professional organizer, and so every month she would come and she would help me purge and get rid of stuff and organize so that I would be ready to move. And so we did this for months. I want to say it was maybe like the end of June of 2019. So I had almost 2 months left on my current lease, and it was about to be time for me to tell my landlord in Seattle what I was doing or not. And I was talking on the phone to another friend of mine about wanting to go to LA and like not being fully sure where I was going to live. And she said, oh, well, have you talked to our other friend? She just posted an Instagram story saying she's looking for a roommate. Ooh. And I was like, no, let me call her right now. And so I hit her up and I was like, girl, are you looking for a roommate? Because I'm trying to move. And she was like, absolutely, it's yours. Like, you can just move in whenever. Also around that time, I was fun employed because I had a really terrible job earlier that year that I had quit because it was super toxic. And I was like, okay, what does this mean? Am I going to have to job hunt when I'm in LA? What is that going to look like? Around the same time, I had another friend who worked in tech remotely, and I had a Facebook group for the podcast at the time. And she was like, hey, my team is hiring for a writer position. Can I post this in your Facebook group? I was like, girl, post it to me because I will apply for that job. I ended up applying for this job for this writer position at a tech company that I basically was too senior for. Mm-hmm. And so instead of rejecting me, they actually created a job suited for my level that was fully remote that started a few weeks before I was set to move to LA. So I basically had this remote job fall into my lap where I could afford living in LA. And then I had a room at an apartment with a friend of mine, rent controlled, that was just like ready for me to move into it. So I didn't have to look for a job. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to look for an apartment. It just like worked out.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect example of a kind of being in alignment and, going for your goals, and everything starts to like work out in a very beautiful synchronicitous type of way. And yeah, that's so cool. You were destined to move to LA. And
I was.
I love it.
At that time.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk more about how you learned more about manifestation, that turning point that you described in 2020 where you realized, okay, I maybe do have a little bit more agency to create my own reality. Were there any resources that taught you that? Like, how did you tap into this space?
So I am just naturally very curious about this stuff. Okay, that's a good question, because ultimately, I just started reading so many books. I started going on YouTube Academy, YouTube University, binging so many videos about manifesting, about law of attraction, law of assumption. So I kind of self-taught myself in a lot of ways, and ultimately kind of started to research the science behind things as well, because I do like to understand how things work, right? Because it was all these things that I was putting on my vision board started coming true. And I was like, how is this happening? I was like, okay, I understand, or I can conceptualize that these woo-woo things are happening of like, okay, what I'm visualizing is coming true, putting it on the vision board, but what's actually happening? And so that kind of led me into learning a little bit more about like quantum physics and neuroscience and how our brain works. And I like understanding that side of things too. And yeah, if you have some very nerdy listeners, maybe you guys would be interested in this, of learning more about the quantum physics side of things, of realizing that our consciousness actually is affecting things outside of us. And a very heady topic and theory that's becoming more popularized now is that there's infinite versions of reality. And so it's like, we really do have so much power in tuning our frequency, tuning our vibration to different versions of reality based on, what we're thinking, based on our beliefs, based on our feelings and our nervous system state. So that was kind of the next part of what I started researching, was our nervous system and how much our body and our nervous system really does affect, what we're calling into our life and what we even feel safe drawing into our life. So I guess to answer your question, that was a lot of going all around, but yeah. I kind of, self-taught myself by reading tons of books, tons of podcasts, tons of, YouTube videos, and going down this rabbit hole of manifestation and kind of testing it out myself and realizing that this absolutely does work, learning a little bit more about the science of it. And, it's like that saying that's like, hey, Christians call it, prayer, or atheists call it the universe, or whatever it is. It's like, there's so many different ways to explain what's happening, but no one denies that it's happening. No one denies that manifesting's real. And I think I love talking about how if you don't believe in manifesting, it's just like, you might as well just try it out, because I didn't believe in it either until I just started testing it out and realized that I really could manifest so many things. And people pretty quickly can kind of understand that it does work if you just let yourself start to expect good things. If you start to make a vision board, if you start to like let yourself get your hopes up, so many things will start coming true. You won't doubt it for very long.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I love that you talked about the nerdy science pieces of it, because that's something that I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
That I haven't dedicated the time to like really learning about and truly understanding, but I'm just so curious about how like the quantum physics side relates to the manifestation side. I think the neuroscience side, that part I'm like, okay, yes, that makes sense to me, where we're rewiring our brains to be able to see more of what's possible. I'm like, okay, cool. This idea of infinite realities and tapping into the realities where, we're either on a better timeline or we are getting more of the things that we want is something that I'm like, whoa, that is so interesting. Yeah. And like my brain can't fully comprehend it, even though I've probably done it in some sense.
Totally.
Is there a way that you would explain that, like kind of quantum physics and manifestation 101? I was going to say for dummies, but we're lucky girls are smart. But 101 to make it really easy for us to understand.
Yeah. I mean, the way that if you want kind of like an analogy to think about it, this is how my brain thinks about it, of like, we always talk about, it's like a crepe cake. Crepes are very like these tiny thin little layers stacked upon each other, right? It's like a visual to look at. And but it's like a crepe cake going up for, millions of inches long or whatever it is. And so there's these realities kind of stacked upon each other, and we're always shifting between different versions of reality based on our frequency. And our frequency is basically determined by what thoughts we're thinking, our feelings. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about how our feelings and our heart produce this electromagnetic field. And, it's like our thoughts are creating, or our thoughts are tuning us, and our feelings are tuning us to these different versions of reality based on whatever we are feeling, whatever we're thinking. And, if you can kind of understand the neuroscience part of things, we can tie it to that, because our reticular activating system, right, is filtering out 99.999% of reality. And we are intaking 11 million bits of information per second. Have you heard that before?
Which is wild.
It's wild, right? And so our reticular activating system is filtering out 99.99% of that. And so, that is a huge determinant of what version of reality we're tuned to, right? Our subconscious beliefs is a huge thing too, because we're having 60,000 thoughts per day, right? Per second, sorry. We're having 60,000 thoughts per second, and 95% of those are subconscious. So it's like we really have to change our subconscious mind and our subconscious beliefs if we're wanting to change, what thoughts we're going to be thinking and tuning to. It's a good way to think about, the analogy, if it's hard for your mind to conceptualize it. Think about it like a crepe cake. So it's like these infinite versions of reality, and we're always tuning, we're always shifting between versions of reality. And like you said, you think you've done it. It's like we all are. Like literally we all are. We're all manifesting whether we think we are or not, based on our thoughts, based on our assumptions. And that kind of ties a little bit into, the law of assumption and being like, hey, whatever you are assuming is going to happen, that's what version you are tuning to. That's what version you are going to see. If you are assuming that you're a lucky person, it was proven. I don't know if you heard that study when people were claiming that they're lucky. Looking at this newspaper, if you claim that you were lucky, you're going to start seeing more opportunities in your life, versus if you're claiming that you're unlucky, if you're always in this like victim mentality, thinking that everything's happening to you and not for you, your brain literally will show you different things in your reality, which is crazy.
I've been taking Nutrafol for almost 2 years now, and it has made all of the difference in my hair health. No, it's not some big project that I have to stay on top of. It's part of my daily rhythm. It was easy to incorporate into my routine, and my hair is healthier, thicker, and sheds so much less. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. And what I love most is that Nutrafol doesn't try to quick fix your hair. It actually targets root causes like stress, nutrition, hormones, and lifestyle. It's a more holistic, thoughtful approach, and you can tell they've done their homework. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body, since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF Contents Certified, which is the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. I take the women's formula, and I've definitely noticed a difference just in the overall thickness and health of my hair. Plus, with a subscription, it's delivered automatically. You get access to one-on-one naturopathic consults and even a Headspace membership, which, let's be honest, is a gift in itself. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. Give the gift of confidence this holiday season with Nutrafol. Whether you're treating yourself or someone on your list, visibly healthier, thicker hair is the gift that keeps on giving. Right now, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription, plus free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and use promo code BALANCEDLESS. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code BALANCEDLESS for $10 off. As a Kendra Scott partner, I'm sharing with you how I make this holiday season special. And let's be honest, there's something that's so satisfying about giving a gift that actually gets a reaction. Like when someone says, wait, this is for me? Those are the best kinds of moments. And Kendra Scott is my go-to for those moments. The holidays shine brightest because of all of the tradition, events, and gifts that matter to you. You make the season bright, you make the season sparkle, and you make the season special with holiday gifts from Kendra Scott. Whether it's for your sister, your best friend, or yourself, because yes, that counts, Kendra Scott has something for everyone across fashion, demi-fine, and fine jewelry. And if you want to go even more personal, you can design your own piece through the color bar, either online or in store. My personal favorite piece right now is the Bella tennis bracelet. It's just the right amount of sparkle, easy to dress up or down, and somehow goes with everything. I'll be wearing it from now through New Year's and probably well into the next year. And beyond the sparkle, I love that Kendra Scott has been giving back for over 20 years, supporting causes that matter, especially women and youth-focused initiatives. So go ahead, you make the season elegant, effortless, and unforgettable. Visit kendrascott.com/gifts and use code SSL20 at checkout for 20% off one full-priced jewelry item. Exclusions apply. Offer ends December 31st, 2025. That's KENDRASCOTT.com/gifts, and the code is SSL20. Getting enough protein in every day can be such a challenge between meals, meetings, workouts, or just living life. It's easy to fall short. But Ritual's essential protein makes it so much easier and way tastier to hit your protein goals. It's become a regular part of my routine because it checks all the boxes. It's plant-based, has 20 grams of protein, and the handcrafted vanilla flavor is actually good, like genuinely enjoyable. There's no stevia, no sugar, no artificial stuff, just clean, smooth protein. And what makes it even better is the quality. Ritual uses non-GMO peas that are grown right here in the US using regenerative farming. And the formula includes a complete amino acid profile to help you build lean muscle. Every batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes and is informed sport certified, so you know exactly what you're getting and what you're not. If you already love Ritual's multivitamins or gut health supplements, this fits right in. They're one of the few brands where I feel like every product is researched with intention and you can feel the difference. Also, it's HSA, FSA eligible, so you can save using pre-tax dollars, which is always a win. So why not shake up your Ritual? Get 25% off your first month of Ritual when you visit ritual.com/balance and add essential protein today. That's ritual.com/balance for 25% off your first month. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
It reminds me of, I was recently doing some research for another episode that I'm recording soon, and I was watching an interview that one of my upcoming guests was doing, and she referenced this study, and I'm going to try and summarize it as well as she did. It was like a makeup study, basically, where they had a group of people. They took their mirrors away and they weren't able to like actually see themselves.
Yes.
And on the first day of the study, they pretended to apply makeup to these people. So these people thought that they were getting like a full beat and then had to go out in the world, go about their day and make note of how people treated them. Then the second day, they were not told that they were given makeup, no pretend makeup, and they just like went out into the world knowing that they were barefaced. And these people truly said that the first day when they thought they were wearing makeup, that they were being treated better, that people were nicer, that people were paying more attention to them, all of these things, even though both days they were actually barefaced and had nothing on. But it was because of that assumption that they felt like, oh, I'm made up, I feel better, I present better, so now I'm being treated better, which actually it wasn't true. It was just the assumption that they felt like they should be treated better.
It's what our brain's looking for, right? Like our brain is always looking to confirm our own beliefs and confirm what we are looking for. If you are assuming that people are going to treat you better, your brain quite literally will show you little instances or make assumptions of like, if that person made a little like look at you or whatever, if you are thinking people don't like me, people think I'm ugly, you're going to take that little gesture of thinking that they don't like you. But if you're thinking that everyone's thinking you're beautiful or going to treat you amazing, they'll take that little gesture, your brain will take that little gesture and be like, oh, that person like thinks I'm beautiful, like that person was smiling at me or whatever it is. So it's so crazy how much power we have inside of our own mind to interpret and change our perspective of what we see in our life. You only see what you're looking for.
Can we talk a little bit more about the subconscious mind? Because I know you had referenced it when we were talking a little bit more about the quantum physics side of things. For people who may not be familiar with their subconscious mind, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, your subconscious mind, you can think about it like an iceberg. Maybe you've heard that analogy before, where we know that an iceberg, you only see, you know, the 10% of an iceberg on the top. That's kind of like our conscious mind. And our subconscious mind is the 90%, the 95% underneath, which is really controlling, again, most of our thoughts, most of our beliefs, a lot of our emotions, a lot of these things that are subconsciously running our life and running our mind when you're not even aware of it, if that makes sense. There's a lot of tools like things like shadow work where you can really get to the root cause of why you're thinking these things. Shadow work is such a powerful tool to really, really help you understand why you've been thinking these things, or, you know, maybe why you have trauma or these different beliefs around things in your life. And it takes, if you want to talk about changing our subconscious mind, there's some tools that we teach. You know, I'm a coach and I teach my clients of how to rewire their mind. So there's a couple tools of like, as soon as you wake up, your subconscious mind is very suggestible, very malleable. You're still having those theta brainwave states right after you wake up. And so that's a really good time to change your subconscious mind. So for my clients, I always tell them to listen to like affirmation tracks or listen to something positive, because you're really helping to change your subconscious mind during those times before your conscious mind kind of like takes over and it's harder to get to your subconscious mind. And repetition is really important for changing your subconscious mind, because again, if you've been thinking these thoughts that you're not good enough or that you're ugly or whatever it is, like money's hard to make, if you've been thinking those thoughts for years and years and years, it's going to take a little bit of time and repetition to create these new thoughts and create these new neural pathways inside of your mind. But thankfully, because of neuroplasticity, it shows that we actually can change our mind with those repetition, with creating these new neural pathways inside of our mind. So to answer your question, it's kind of like that iceberg where it's these thoughts and these beliefs that we've been thinking for so long that maybe are controlling your mind without you even realizing it. Because again, we're only conscious of 5% of the thoughts that we think in the day. Does that kind of help?
Mm-hmm, it does, which is so interesting to think about. It's like those thoughts that we can't even hear, that we don't even realize we're thinking, that are actually running the show.
Right.
So you could think, oh, but I'm doing all of these right things, and I do, the 5% that I'm aware of, I'm trying to affirm or do these things. But if you don't get to the root of what's actually happening beneath the surface, that 5% obviously can't overpower the 95%.
And a lot of times we're not even aware. Like, we're not even aware of the thoughts we're thinking, or sometimes people feel like there's just all this noise going on in their mind without them taking the time to understand what's going on. We have a formula that we teach in my business, which is the 3R formula, which is recognize, rewire, and regulate. So the first R is recognize, which is recognize what you're even thinking. Meditation is really helpful with that, of just taking time to sit with your thoughts, right? Take time to observe what's even happening and observe what thoughts you're thinking, because if you never take the time to observe what thoughts you're thinking, it's going to be harder to create the life that you want and create these new beliefs and create these new thoughts, because they're just running on autopilot without you even realizing what's going on.
Yeah, like you don't even know they're there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can we talk more of the things that people can do to kind of rewire these thoughts? So you mentioned things like affirming repetition.
Yes.
What are some other things that you recommend?
Yes. I'm a huge fan of EFT tapping.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of listening to something like subliminals or sleep tracks when you're sleeping, because your subconscious mind is still listening, still intaking information even when you're sleeping. So that's like a cheat code for rewiring your mind, because it's like 7-8 hours of constant creating these new beliefs and listening to these affirmations. Some of my other favorite things are things like changing your identity and changing your internal dialogue, right? Because whatever you're saying to yourself, I have this quote, which is, people echo back to you what you whisper within yourself. So if you're whispering within yourself and thinking all the time internally that you're not good enough, or, it's that you can't have your dream job, or that all men suck, or whatever it is, if you're saying that internally, of course, that's going to be deepening those beliefs in your subconscious. So changing your internal dialogue and changing the identities that you put on yourself and the labels you put on yourself. A lot of people, maybe consider themselves and identify as like an overthinker, or as an anxious person, or, just think that bad things always happen to them. But if you really start to change the labels that you put on yourself, your subconscious mind and your brain is always trying to confirm what you believe. If you're changing your beliefs, if you're changing your identity, you are going to start behaving differently. So those are some of the things that I like to do.
Wait, let's talk more about them, about some of those. Because I know I've been talking a lot about EFT tapping on the interwebs, and I know it's something that you're a big proponent of as well. I was first introduced to EFT tapping back in 2019 when I had made all those changes and moved to LA, because I was working with a life coach at the time, and she also works very heavily in manifestation, and she would make custom EFT scripts for me for things that we were working on. And so that was my first exposure to it. And so I'd done it years ago, manifested those great things, moved to LA, all the stuff, and then promptly forgot about it and didn't do it again until recently I got back into it. But I would love to talk more about what that actual practice is and why it's so helpful for people.
Yeah, I am obsessed with EFT tapping. I describe it of, it's basically, so it was created from someone who was getting rid of a fear, of a phobia of water. So what is really helpful with EFT tapping and how I describe it, it's kind of like it's releasing and reducing this resistance and this fear that you have around certain issues or certain topics, like a fear, for example, if you have a fear of speaking or fear of whatever it is, EFT tapping really helps to reduce that emotional charge. And what's happening in the brain actually is it's calming the activity in your amygdala. And our amygdala is the source of our fight or flight. So it's a source of like these anxious thoughts, these overthinking thoughts of feeling, tense and all this stuff in this survival mode. So EFT tapping, typically when you're tapping, you start with the negatives. You start with like, okay, even though I'm feeling some anxiety right now, even though I'm feeling a little bit scared, even though I'm having fear of being seen, for example, it's really helping to reduce that emotional charge. So then that fear and those anxious feelings kind of go away. And then you start to reaffirm the positive towards the end where it's like, okay, no, it is safe to be seen. People respect me and value my presence and respect what I'm saying and things like that. So yeah, we actually had Brad Yates on my podcast, who's kind of like the tap daddy of tapping. And he is so amazing. And he talks about how tapping, sometimes it can be like you're taking a pain medicine, right? So it's like you're tapping and like these feelings instantly kind of go away and you make this huge difference. But sometimes it's more like a vitamin where it's like, it's working kind of more slowly and on the inside as you're going through these sequences. And another person, we also had someone named Haley Hoffman-Smith, who's a huge tapping person. And she kind of described it of like, we are all the sun, as in the sun in the sky. Like we're all this light born and we know that we're worthy and we know that we're perfect, but then we grow up and we take on these limiting beliefs, we take on these feelings of not being good enough, and tapping kind of helps to clear the clouds, right? So you're clearing those beliefs away, clearing the clouds away, so then you can come back to your natural state of shining, of being in your power and knowing that you're so amazing and knowing that you can do anything. I'm a huge, huge fan of tapping. And it seems weird because you're just like tapping on your face, you're tapping on these meridian points in your body, and it seems weird, but anyone who tries it typically will quickly realize how powerful it is, and then you'll be addicted to it.
Yeah, and it's just so accessible and easy to do.
Totally.
I don't know if you had this happen, but oftentimes when I'm tapping, I will yawn a lot.
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Yes.
Why does that happen?
Well, it's actually, so when you're yawning, it means that your nervous system is like calming down. So your nervous system's getting more regulated. Or like some people will feel like buzzing feelings inside their body, or some people cry, if they're really releasing a lot of resistance.
I definitely cried during tapping
Totally. So there's a lot of different physical reactions that can happen. Again, if you're not having physical reactions, it's still working, but there are a lot of physical reactions that can happen.
Yeah, which is like so interesting.
It's so cool.
Let's also get back to subliminals as well, which was something that you mentioned. It's also something that I love.
Yeah.
Can we talk about more specifically what a subliminal is?
I wouldn't say I'm like an expert, but my understanding of what I know subliminals are is essentially it's typically like affirmation tracks, right? It's like affirmations or positive words, positive phrases that are really, really, really quiet, laid over some music or some type of like rain sounds or nature sounds or something like that, frequencies. The affirmations are so quiet, but your subconscious mind can still pick it up. So our subconscious mind is so smart and so complex that it's picking up information, it's taking in information even when your conscious mind can't hear it, even when it's underlaid or overlaid other noises, it's still picking it up, it's still listening. And so that's essentially what a subliminal is. It's these affirmation tracks that are really, really, really quiet, but your subconscious mind is still listening and still intaking those new affirmations, those new phrases. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. Are there any places you like to go for subliminals that you'd recommend?
With subliminals, not to fearmonger or anything, but it is important to like find it from a trustworthy source because again, you can't really hear what's being said. I have used someone named High Frequency Guru on YouTube before. I actually started creating my own subliminals for myself and for my clients, so obviously that's what I recommend. Yeah. I've used High Frequency Guru before. Okay. But you can also create your own if you want to. If you really want to take control of what's being said and you can customize it to, whatever you're working towards, whatever beliefs you're trying to rewire into your mind, or you could even like use your name and actually if you do create your own subliminals with your voice, it does go into your subconscious mind like a little bit deeper and a little bit quicker if you're using your voice.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's yourself.
Yeah.
It's probably more, you don't have to do as much convincing of your
Yes,
subconscious.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for people who may be, I don't know if reluctant is the right word, but who may feel like, well, I tried to manifest and it didn't work, or I'm running into these blocks, or my reality isn't changing.
Yes.
What do you recommend, or what do you say to people in that instance?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think there's kind of like two parties, right? There's someone who maybe doesn't believe in manifesting and hasn't like intentionally tried to manifest. And to that person, I say, just try it, right? Just start making a vision board, just start dreaming big, just start letting yourself expect good things. And you can usually quickly, you'll kind of realize that this stuff works. Maybe you'll start manifesting smaller things. One of the first things I intentionally manifested, or like tested out, was like if I could manifest like a free cup of coffee, or even seeing things, right? Like I want to manifest, I was like, hey, universe, show me a sign of like a Bratz doll if I can manifest. And it's like I ended up seeing that. I was like, okay, cool. It's like you can start asking for signs and things, and testing your powers, some people call it. So that's like one camp of people. But then the other camp, who maybe have tried manifesting, they're getting angry because it's not working. For those people, there's a couple things that I recommend, which again, I've already mentioned this, but shadow work, really looking and doing some shadow work, because you might have some subconscious beliefs that are going against what you're trying to manifest. So if you are trying to manifest money, but if you have a subconscious belief that rich people are evil, or you're going to have to work really, really hard and success isn't safe, then your mind and your body is just going to keep you safe, right? Like our mind and our body is always trying to keep us safe. So it might self-sabotage, or it might not even show you situations in your life or opportunities that could make you money, for example, right? So it's like figuring out, going back to that formula, doing the first R is recognize. So start recognizing what your subconscious beliefs are. Start doing some shadow work. Start maybe meditating and understand what's even going on first. And then the second part of why a lot of people don't end up manifesting is our nervous system. I already mentioned that, but our nervous system, if it doesn't feel safe calling in money, for example, it could also self-sabotage. It could, again, not show you opportunities, or self-sabotage opportunities, or make you, say no to opportunities that could make you more money, or meet new people, or meet the love of your life, or something like that. So checking your subconscious beliefs and then regulating your nervous system is a huge part of why people can't manifest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. That definitely makes sense.
This time of year always gets busy. More errands, more gatherings, more walking around, trying to get everything done. And the last thing I want is to be halfway through my day thinking, why did I wear these shoes? That is why I have been living in my Vionic Walk Slim Glide sneakers. They're sleek, supportive, and they seriously keep up with me on days when I'm getting in way more steps than I planned. Meet your fall sneaker upgrade. The Walk Slim series from Vionic blends fashion-first design with invisible support. Sleek, low profile, and biomechanically engineered to move with you, because walking through life with intention should still look good. I ordered mine online, which was super easy. No weird sizing issues, no drama. And the second I put them on, I was like, oh, these are beyond comfortable. What makes Vionic different is their exclusive VioMotion technology. They started by revolutionizing medical orthotics, and now they use that same science to engineer everyday shoes that actually support you. It's one of the few brands that you can wear them all day long and not feel like you need to kick them off the minute you get home. They even offer a 30-day guarantee. Wear them, love them, or return for a full refund within 30 days. Use the code LUCKY at checkout for 15% off your entire order at vionicshoes.com when you log into your account. One-time use only. Again, that is code LUCKY at vionicshoes.com for 15% off your entire order. Vionic Shoes, wearable well-being for your feet. Okay, quick heads up. We're about to get into some grown folks business. So if you're around kids, coworkers, easily flustered roommates, now is the time for headphones. Okay, so I've teamed up with Bellesa to give every single one of you a free spicy toy. And not just any toy, it's the one that has been living rent-free on your For You page. You already know what I'm talking about. The Rose. It's gone viral for a reason. 10 suction settings, it's rechargeable, splash proof, and whisper quiet, which is great because you might not be. the girlies know. Now, if you haven't been properly introduced to Bellesa, let me get you up to speed. This is a by women for everyone company that's all about rethinking what sexual wellness can look like, empowering you to explore, enjoy, and own your pleasure. And their products are top tier, kind of like the Air Vibe. The little red one you've definitely seen on IG in her discreet little case. It's 10 out of 10. And the Whisper collection, genuinely wild. Zero sound, no loss in power. I don't know how they did it, but I'm not asking questions. So here's the deal. You're going to head to their website. You're going to peruse. You're going to check out what they've got. You're going to get a toy that you think you'll like. And with every single order, you will also get a free rose toy. Yes, really. It retails for $99 and is yours free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description or go to bbvibes.com/lucky. That's bbvibes.com/lucky. Finding the right underwear, especially to wear while I'm working out, used to be such a struggle. I wanted something that was comfortable, that stayed in place, and that didn't show through my leggings. And let's be real, most options out there either dig in, roll down, or feel way too bulky. Then I found the Fits Everybody collection from Skims, and I've never looked back. It started with the cheeky brief, and now I have completely replaced my underwear drawer with this pair of underwear. The fabric is buttery soft, it's super stretchy, and molds to my body. It honestly feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. So whether I'm at the gym, I'm running errands, I'm lounging at home, or I'm all dressed up, it moves with me, so I never have to think about it. And the best part is there are no weird seams, no digging, no panty lines, just a smooth, barely there fit under everything. And let's talk about the bras, because finding a comfortable one is just as hard. When I need extra support, the t-shirt bra is my go-to. It molds to my shape and completely disappears under my clothes. And for those days when I want something light but still supportive, the triangle bralette is perfect. It's the closest thing to going braless while still feeling put together and having a little bit of coverage. The Fits Everybody collection comes in sizes double extra small to 4X, and you can shop it online or at the flagship store on 5th Ave in New York. After you place your order, just let them know I sent you. Select podcast in the survey and choose my show from the drop-down menu.
And in terms of shadow work, I feel like that is a really common term that you will hear a lot if you're either in the manifestation space, if you're in the wellness space, if you're in kind of the self-help space. I think shadow work is something that can look a lot of different ways just because everyone's shadows are kind of different. Have you found with yourself and your clients that there are methods for shadow work that are more helpful than others at really getting to the root?
This is what I typically recommend. This is what I first started with shadow work, which is usually like journal prompts. It's these journal prompts that are kind of written in a way that are shockingly helpful for discovering like the root cause of why you believe certain things. Maybe it's written in a way where it's like, okay, when did you first feel this feeling of rejection or resentment or whatever it is, and then you have to kind of go back in your memory and realize like, oh, when I was in second grade, this person like told me I was ugly or told me I wasn't good enough or whatever, and I internalized that. I think it's so powerful to actually journal it out because you're kind of taking these memories, these suppressed memories, your shadow, which is like the parts of yourself that you have kind of been avoiding, that you didn't want to talk about. You're like, I'm just gonna like dig this a little bit deeper into my mind. But you're taking those parts of yourself, parts of your memories, parts of your thoughts onto paper. And then typically when it's on the paper, you're looking at it and being like, oh, like this doesn't actually need to have that much power over me or have that much influence over me. And so that's typically what I recommend, especially for people when they're beginning, because it's helpful to kind of put, pen to paper, get these thoughts onto paper. And so it kind of helps to bring it up, take it out of your mind, and then you can actually move forward. A lot of times I'll cry when I'm doing shadow work because I think a lot of times you kind of realize like, oh, you were the one. I was like, oh, I've been the one that's like holding myself back. Oh, I've been holding on to these beliefs or holding on to this perspective or holding on to this anger or shame when I didn't need to. This has been holding me back for so long. And that's typically what I recommend. There's a lot of different ways, like whether it's with therapy or, in meditation, kind of coming to these understandings of yourself on your own.
Yeah, I feel like journaling is such a great tool
Totally.
for just helping us express ourselves. I had a moment maybe about a week ago now which now looking back on it, I recognize was probably a bit of shadow work. I was just like cleaning up around the house. I was doing absolutely nothing, but I think because I just let my mind relax, I was kind of hit with these realizations where in a previous relationship that I'd had, all of the ways that I did not maintain my own boundaries and how that ended up being kind of detrimental to what happened. And so I stopped what I was doing. I went to my journal. I wrote about all of these instances when I had not like stuck to my boundaries or really spoken up about what was important to me. And then I ended up forgiving myself for all of those things and like really taking that lesson and releasing it. And it was such an unexpected but really helpful exercise. It was almost kind of like a bit of a breakthrough.
Totally.
Just on like a random day in my apartment where it was like a breakthrough. And I think having those little moments where we do let ourselves feel things and express it and also release those things can be so helpful.
I love how you were journaling about it too, and rather than just, I think, thinking about it and pondering on it is so powerful too. But when you're actually journaling, I think it helps you to put these kind of scrambled up thoughts and feelings onto paper, and you can actually look at it and you're like, oh wow, I can't believe I've been thinking that, or it had seemed so chaotic or cluttered inside of your mind, and then you're putting it onto paper and you're like, oh, I can actually forgive myself, I can release this, I can let go of this, which is so powerful.
At least for me, it's easier to articulate myself when I'm writing something out than it is when I'm either saying it out loud, or there's just something that feels a little bit safer and it's a little bit easier. Maybe because also when you're writing things down, you have to kind of slow down a little bit. I can't write as fast as I can speak. And so it makes me more thoughtful with my words. But there is something about writing things down that helps me articulate.
I think it activates different parts of your brain too. So yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. I would also love to get your thoughts on kind of manifestation methods, because I feel like at least the sides, I mean, my For You page looks crazy. I want nobody to ever see the mix of things that's on my For You page. But I do feel like I get served a lot of manifestation content where it makes things feel really complicated.
Okay.
Where it's like, today's new moon, you have to have a 3x5 inch piece of paper and burn it at the correct degree, where it's like, okay, like, this is so specific. This is so confusing. I appreciate when people talk about manifestation more so as a state of being instead of like, here's this 12-step process of this really jumbled, confusing list of things to do. I am curious if you feel like there are specific methods that are helpful for manifestation, or if you do feel like it is more of that frequency state of being, or maybe a combination of the two.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really believe with anything like you just mentioned, like the new moon or writing it 50 times or whatever it is, those are all just tools. There's these tools that you can use. And if that resonates with you, great. If that's what helps you, believe that you're going to get your manifestation more, then great. But ultimately, as you said, manifesting really can be and really is just a state of being. The law of assumption, which is kind of like a woo-woo idea, but it really is just this law, this theory that whatever you decide is true is the truth. Whatever you decide is going to work for you is going to work for you. Like if you decide that, you are going to get all your manifestations. You are a lucky person. You are going to be a millionaire or whatever, live your dream life, have your dream mansion, whatever it is, that is going to be true to you. At the beginning, I liked doing more of these like techniques of, maybe you've heard like the 3-6-9 method or whatever it is, or, sometimes I like a little new moon ritual or whatever it is, because it feels fun. It feels good at the time. But ultimately, you really do have so much power inside of your own mind, making those decisions that, yes, I am going to decide that everything's working out for me. I'm going to decide to embody the version of me who has everything that she wants. And, to my clients or on my socials a lot, I talk about how you kind of just have to act as if. You can act as if you are living your dream life. You can act as if you are wildly abundant right now, or you can act as if everything's working out for you. And that, I think, is one of the best ways to manifest, is just acting as if. It's kind of like method acting. And, a lot of people talk about how, and I really believe that it's more your identity, right? Who are you identifying as? Are you identifying as a lucky person? Are you identifying as someone who everything works out for you? And you can change that identity at any time. And it might feel fake at first. That's the thing. It might feel fake at first if you've been going years of your life thinking that you're a victim or thinking that nothing works out for you. when you decide to start feeling more lucky or embodying a confident version of you, it might feel fake at first, but eventually it's going to start feeling more real. Eventually, you're going to start seeking out more things in your reality to prove that you are a lucky person, that things do work out for you. And these huge, delusional goals, I like the word delusional. Maybe we can talk about that. These huge, delusional goals are going to start feeling like it's going to be normal for you. Like it's not. It kind of starts to feel like it's not even delusional. It's like, yeah, duh, of course I'm going to get everything that I want. And so kind of to answer your question, whatever works for you. It's like if you like those rituals, if you like those different types of things to manifest, that's awesome. But I don't think you have to do anything in order to manifest. I think embodying that energy really is the most important thing. And you can make that decision, which is really cool.
As you were describing that, I was trying to think of an example where I'm like, okay, when have I done that? And the best example that I can think of would be when it comes to fitness, because I got my start in fitness and I used to create fitness content years ago. A question that I still get to this day is like, how can I be disciplined enough to work out? How do I start working out? And I had to think about my own fitness journey, because I went from the most like lazy, not interested in fitness person to being a very fit person. And I remember that shift happened for me in my early 20s when I started seeing other girls my age at the gym who were like super athletic, super strong, and just being like, I'm going to be one of those girls. What would one of those girls do when she comes to the gym? I just have to reprogram myself to just be a person who works out. And it's not even necessarily about how much you're lifting or what program you're doing or what, but just building the habit of doing it was like I had to take on the identity of one of those fit girls and then making the decisions that one of those fit girls would make. 15 years later, it's like still a big part of who I am. And that was the best example I could think of when I felt like I first started consciously doing it. And I think sometimes we want the feeling to come before the action, but the action actually usually needs to come before the feeling.
It's like starting to embody that version of you and it's starting to identify as someone who is fit, someone who likes to go to the gym, or someone who takes care of their body, or whatever it is. And when you start to identify as that first, then you start to naturally take more of those steps. I've definitely done that for myself when I started like working out more. But when I started to identify as like, oh, I'm just someone who always like moves their body. Like that's a non-negotiable for me. And I literally, I'm like, okay, it's not hard to wake up and go to the gym or go on a walk at least, because that's just who I am. And when you start to identify as that first, then you start to naturally take those actions. And so to your point, I 100% agree.
Yeah, it just like becomes who you are.
Yes.
And then you don't necessarily need discipline, motivation. It's second nature.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like in some ways it is kind of that subconscious reprogramming, because you're not relying on your own willpower or decision making. It's just like, this is who I am.
When you start to get really clear on who that version of you is, it's a lot easier to start doing it.
So let's get into the delusional thing, because I know this is an area that we have differing opinions, which I actually think is kind of fun.
Yeah.
When I put my manifestations on a pedestal, that is when, for me, they have been a lot harder to reach. And so when I started describing, things that I want, or I hear people describe things that they want, they're like, I'm being delusional. I'd love to hear more so like what you think and why you encourage people to have what you consider like big delusional dreams.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of things, because I love this topic. So it's like, now we can talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of like the word delusional. I kind of like, my podcast is called Inspired Delusions, and I think we're kind of trying to rebrand the word delusional to be more of like a good thing. And because I really think that having like a delusional goal should be like a really, 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 really big goal. That's what has resonated with me, because like the bigger my goals, the more inspiration that I have to go towards those goals, if that makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily say for me it's like putting it on a pedestal. I think the bigger the goal is, I take more inspired action. And we actually recently had a neuroscientist on the podcast who agreed with me, who said like it's good to have, these really huge delusional goals, because one, it actually gives your brain more dopamine if you have like a really, really, really big goal. And again, not getting a new job, or like not having like a semi-decent boyfriend or whatever. It's like when you have these huge goals, it actually gives your brain more dopamine, which is the motivational chemical. So it's like it literally gives you more motivation to go after your goal. So I think me and you ultimately we do agree, because it's like you're just
using
saying
different words.
We're just using different words because my goals, I would say, like, maybe you're using the example of growing your podcast like 5x or whatever. It's like, that actually is not delusional. Like that literally is realistic. And it's like a delusional goal would be like, hey, you want to have the number one podcast, like let's beat, who's number one or whatever. And that's more of like a delusional goal, which again could be realistic. Like that could happen. And I think that's what is fun for me, is having those huge goals, and it gives your brain more motivation to kind of go after it. And when you are normalizing, something else that the neuroscientist talked about is when you start to visualize yourself receiving these huge goals, it starts to normalize it in your brain. And so it's less scary, right? If you never think about like the best case scenario, if you never think about that, it's going to feel so far away. It's going to feel scary to your brain and to your nervous system. But if you start to like visualize yourself winning, visualize yourself receiving like these huge goals, it starts to normalize it. And the more you normalize something, the less resistance you have towards it. So I don't know if that makes sense.
I think speaks to the importance of expanders.
Totally.
Because it's like, if you don't know that something is possible, you don't think that something is possible, you're not surrounded by people who think that something is possible, you're going to be really limited by what it is you see. And having an expanded definition of what you think is possible. I like to use audacious.
I like
for
that
these
too.
like big audacious goals that you're trying to reach. Like the higher you shoot, the higher you'll land. And also having people around you who like believe in that too and are willing to push you towards that is super important.
Yeah, totally. The expanders is so huge. Our subconscious mind, it's a lot easier for us to visualize ourselves receiving huge goals or receiving what we want if we can see other people receiving that, and it starts to normalize it to our mind. So yeah, that's so true. I do like the word audacious, have more audacious goals and dreaming bigger. I love how you just said the higher you aim, the higher you'll land, I think is what you said. And that's so true too. I think that goes along with this this idea. Have you heard of like the 10x? Whatever your goals are, 10x it. And then that's what your goal should be. Because when you have this huge goal, when it's like so big, it kind of starts to get rid of these little details, the like minute little details. Your brain stops like worrying about those kind of things and starts to think a little bit bigger picture. I loved learning about the 10x rule, because I was like, yeah, it's basically what being delusional is like dreaming so big and expanding your mind to what's possible. Because if you 10x your goals and then you have this huge goal in mind, even if you get 10% of it, 20% of it, it's like better than what you were going to get originally. Dreaming bigger is essentially my whole mission, is truly helping people to remember that they can manifest anything and like not limiting ourselves. I think so many people don't even let themselves dream big or let themselves imagine themselves receiving everything they want or receiving the number one spot, for example, because they think they should be like realistic. And I loved your episode that said, don't be realistic. I 100% agree. I think
what most people consider realistic, I consider down horrendous.
Exactly.
Like,
no, literally.
The trenches.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if that's realistic, I don't want it.
Exactly. And Will Smith talks about, how every successful person is kind of like a little bit delusional. And I love his quote, which he says, being realistic is the fastest road to mediocrity. It's like, okay, well, if you want a mediocre life, then yeah, have mediocre goals. But if you know that you're destined for more, if you have that calling in your heart that you are meant for more, it's like, dream bigger and don't be worried about disappointment. Don't be worried that maybe your ego is going to like take a little bit of a hit if you don't get like exactly what you want, but like you might as well dream big, because the higher you aim, the higher you're going to land.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the story that I heard about Serena Williams when she was still playing tennis, about how, I don't remember if it was like a certain number of points she wanted to score or an average that she wanted to beat, but there was like either a certain number of points and she was like right here. She kept getting so close, but just was hitting a block with reaching it. And so finally her coach decided, actually, instead of having you reach, this point of however many points, let's have you aim for this. Let's have you like go 10 points higher than that for what you're aiming for. And then she crushed that and like surpassed both of them because she was blocked from just not aiming high enough. And it was one of those examples that I like loved.
I love that. That gave me chills. That's so true. Yeah, it's the higher you can set your goals, the higher you can set your vision to, the further you're going to get. And just realizing that if you're not letting yourself dream big, if you're not letting yourself expect those things, and you're the person holding yourself back, like you're the first line of defense in your dreams and your goals. It's like if you're not even literally letting yourself imagine that, which I really, really believe that whatever we are imagining, whatever we're visualizing, that's being created. That also is proven in quantum physics and quantum mechanics and stuff. And so if you're not even letting yourself imagine that, then you're not even moving towards that version of reality.
I think so much of it comes back to safety and feeling safe enough to let yourself imagine these different things, feeling safe enough to get your hopes up. And I think it's why so many of those practices, whether it's like the tapping, the mirror work, the affirmations, the journaling, whatever helps you feel safe enough to just hope and wonder, is like foundational.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, especially heavy on the nervous system regulation, heavy on parenting yourself almost. You know, if you were told that you're not good enough, if you're told that you shouldn't dream big, if you're told that you need to be realistic or whatever it is, really, really rewiring those beliefs and helping yourself feel safe, helping your body feel safe, having like a huge, huge, huge delusional goal, it kind of automatically brings you up against those limiting beliefs. It kind of automatically brings you up to like feeling nervous. And that's where you can kind of like recognize it, start to tell yourself it is safe, start to normalize it. Again, normalize it to your brain and to your body. And then eventually it doesn't feel as scary and it feels normal. It feels safe.
Olivia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This was so fun. I hope your audience was inspired to dream bigger and realize that they literally have so much power inside of them.
I feel like now more than ever, now is the time to really like believe in the power that we have. Obviously,
Totally.
there's so much happening in the world, and it is really difficult time that there's no better time to really believe in yourself and to believe in what's possible for you.
Totally. One of my favorite quotes is radical optimism is the only way out. And it's like, you know, you might as well be radically optimistic and dream big. And because it's like, that's a much better way to live life. It's a much better feeling, you know, to go through your life, just assuming everything's going to work out for you rather than the opposite. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So please let our audience know where they can find you, how they can work with you.
Yeah. So you can find me at Olivia Rose Thomas on Instagram and TikTok. And, you know, you can look at my links in my bios to kind of see the options. I have a group coaching program and I have a podcast, like I mentioned, called Inspired Delusions, where we talk about being delusional and dreaming big and remembering how powerful you are. And yeah, full government name on my socials. So.
We love it. Put it right on Maine.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure we link all of that in the description.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you all so much for tuning in. So if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave us a rating and a review. If you're on the audio side of things, you can do that on Apple and on Spotify. We love a 5 stars. Love a 5 stars. Lucky girls give 5 stars, okay? And if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please make sure that you subscribe there at She's So Lucky Pod. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.